Play ball. Hot off the press, handicappers from Wager Talk, SportsMemo, and the Gold Sheet have collaborated on the 2023 Wager Talk Media MLB Betting Guide. From World Series odds to regular season win totals and everything in between, this year's betting guide features previews on all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, and season-long awards like the Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Each preview contains key roster acquisitions and departures to help you get up to speed before opening day. Visit wt.buzz/MLB23 to download your free guide, and we'll see you in the batter's box.
Welcome to the NBA Triple Double Show powered by SportsMemo. I'm your host, Ronald Cabang, also known as UCapper on SportsMemo.com, at UCapper Sports on Twitter. I'll be joined by Moneyline Matt and Jeff Michaels here to break down 3 games from today's NBA slate. Before we get into those games, though, I do want to talk about what we got going on over at SportsMemo.com. Head over to the site today. We got a lot of free plays and analysis from the handicappers over at SportsMemo. We got the live odds page, the leaderboard, all the picks and packages available from all the handicappers as well over at SportsMemo.com. A lot of free game there, so make sure you guys head over there after the show or hit the like and subscribe button before you go as well here on YouTube. It only takes a couple clicks. It also helps our show grow tremendously at that. With that said, let's get Matt and Jeff up here with me. Guys, it's a three game slate here. We got a sideways Jeff here on the panel. We got 3 games on the board here, man. To the latter part of the season here, it's really tough because we don't know what type of motivation we get from some of these teams this early in the day as well. We don't know, who's playing, who's not. But for the most part, we got to do with the information we have, available at the time we're capping these games. But yeah, let's go to you, Matt. Matt, let's talk to you first. How has things been going here in the last part of the season here?
Yeah, I didn't have the weekend I wanted. I ended up going 2-4, but bounced back so far this week. We're 4-1 so far. Yesterday, we had a 4% play on the Minnesota Timberwolves, so that was great. That was actually a $2 Tuesday play. So hopefully you guys got that one. I'm 4-1 in $2 Tuesdays so far, so feeling pretty good about that. Like to get you guys those easy winners for those Tuesday bets. And yeah, just looking at today, to your point, Ron, these slates are getting a little tougher, but we're primarily targeting those spots where both teams have something to play for. So those are the spots, the games that I'm targeting, the player props that I'm targeting, things of that nature. So ready to keep it rolling today with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, same thing for me. I was with you with the Timberwolves. I had the money line there. I kind of did that little money line, Matt money line play. So because I was late on the line, so I took the money line. It was like minus 125 at the time. So that was a good play there. The sides and the money lines have been a lot better than the totals so far to end the season. But hopefully we continue just riding that streak there especially on the sides. Jeff, how are things with you?
I'm right side up now, so I can't complain. But as funny enough, as far as it goes, guys, I'm kind of swinging the opposite. I've been doing a lot with sides and plays of that aspect in the NBA, but we've been running hot with NBA totals here. So, a lot of looks as we get to the end of the year. Some of these lines, some of these games are a little harder to cap, depending on who's playing for what and how much you're playing for. But I've really kind of dove into these totals here at the end of the year, and it's made us some money. So I can't complain as we look to the postseason here starting next week. Wow.
Yeah. It's gonna be a grind here with the playoffs, NBA playoffs, and then obviously everyone's really kicking in the MLB side as well, and then the NHL playoffs. So that's the more reason to go over to SportsMemo.com because we got so many handicappers that touch on many sports here, not just the NBA. But this is the NBA Triple Double Show, so we'll get into the games here. Wizards and the Hawks. Wizards is 34-45 on the season on a 3-game losing streak. Second leg of back-to-back games. Really, after the All-Star break, it seems like they just kind of quit on the team there. They really gave it up. Hawks, on the other hand, at 40-39 on the season, they finally locked in for the play-ins. Second leg of back-to-back games for them as well, coming off of that big win over the Bulls yesterday in Chicago. They head back home into Atlanta here. From an injury perspective, the only person that I know out officially is Avdia for the Wizards. There, we got a bunch of questionables, but I do expect the Wizards to shut these guys down for the remainder of the season. Beal, Wright, Morris, Kuzma, Porzingis, all those guys miss. Officially, like I said, officially questionable at the moment, but I don't expect them to be playing tonight. On the opposite side, we got Trey and Hunter missed yesterday's game. Hunter was actually officially out right before the show. Trey is still questionable. Bogdanovich has been downgraded to questionable. So to me, that's a sign that he might sit tonight. From a matchup perspective, Hawks own the series 2-1, but the Wizards 2-1 against the spread. Hawks won the most recent matchup here, 114 to 107. Jeff, let's start with you here. Do you see, I mean, it's hard to look at these teams here and see who's the more motivated team, but obviously the Hawks have some momentum on their side. Would you look towards them? I mean, this is a pretty big line here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that big line, you said it, was the first thing that stood out to me, no question. I mean, you look back at what Washington's done, sure, they've lost, a majority of their games here in the recent slings. They've lost 3, 4, 8 of their last 10, but they've actually covered 5 out of their last 6. So I think that that's an angle that you take with a great of salt, especially, with the injuries that we see coming in. But Atlanta's won these games and struggled to cover even small lines. I mean, they failed to cover a 3-point favorite in that win against Dallas. They beat Cleveland, but they pushed the spread. They were a 2-point favorite. And prior to that, I mean, they lost a couple as favorites outright. So I said it at the top of the show. I do think that it does come into play what these teams have to play for. And obviously Washington doesn't have much left to play for. But you tell me a double-digit spread here with Atlanta being without Trae Young. My first instinct is not to back Washington, but it's not to back Atlanta as a double-digit favorite potentially without Trae Young. And I think that Bogdanovich injury update is huge because the closer we get to tip-off, I think that those changes, are showing what the team is actually thinking. Because you don't put somebody to questionable unless you're truly debating on sitting them out, 6 hours before game time when they weren't on, the injury report prior to that. So, I'm not in love with this game. I do think Atlanta has more to play for, but neither team has had the defense. I could be looking over here too, but I would be taking Washington plus double-digit points against this Atlanta team right now.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of things. I know Jeff, you touched on the SDQL stuff. A couple of things that I noticed really from the Wizards side, they have covered, especially post All-Star break. I mentioned that they kind of gave up after the All-Star break, but these double-digit lines, they've actually been covering 3-0-1 against the spread as double-digit dogs post All-Star break. Also 3-1 to the over in those games. I feel like in these type of situations, typically the teams are these double digit lines, typically there's no defense involved here. I think one team knows they can beat the other pretty easily. Why focus on the defensive side of the ball? And that's what I kind of see here. I think it's going to be an overtime game, regardless of who's in, right? We see fast pace. Both of these teams play a fast pace. Hawks are 6th in the league in top 10 in pace post All-Star break. This is a situation, like I said, I think typically bench players come in and they really focus on just trying to put numbers up. And that's the type of game I see here with a whole bunch of G League players. Matt, what are your thoughts on this one? Would you look at a total or props or anything on this one?
Yeah, in this spot, like we kind of talked about before the show, this is one of those games that I probably will not be touching. Like we've talked about, the Atlanta Hawks do have a good amount to play for here. There's 3 games left in the season. They're currently in 8th place, and they're tied with the Toronto Raptors, who are sitting in 9th place currently. And then still, the Heat are in 7th. They're 2 games back from the Miami Heat. So, yeah, the Atlanta Hawks definitely have a good amount to play for. But for me, with the absence of DeAndre Hunter, I think that's a big thing here. He's one of those guys. He's a point scorer for them. He's a solid defender for them. And then in addition to that, the potential absence of Trae Young can be big as well. If Trae Young did play, I know he's been playing absolutely terrible, but I would have to take a look at his props tonight. He's missed his number 3 times in a row. You guys know I like taking those guys after they've missed a certain amount of times, taking them in that bounce back. The Washington Wizards, not a great defensive team in addition to that. So if Trae Young did suit up, I would definitely be taking a look at his props. And if Trae did play, then potentially I would take a look at the Hawks. This will not be an official play for me or anything along those lines. I just think at this point in time, this Wizard will be shut down. And then you're left with Daniel Gafford at the centered position. And he's going to be going against Clint Capella, guys like John Collins. You know, if there's one thing about this Atlanta Hawks team, they are big. So that is one advantage that I would give them. But without Trae Young, you don't really exactly have that pick and roll with that mid-range floater or that floater over the defender to Clint Capella for the alley-oop, stuff like that. Because DeJounte Murray's pick and roll game is a little bit different. It's not exactly that of Trae Young. So for me, again, if Trae Young did play, I would take a look at him. Maybe the Atlanta Hawks, I would need more players to be declared in. But to your guys' point, you know, if someone like Bogdanovich sits who comes off the bench, he's a guy who can really help. You know, he gives you 25 minutes. He can potentially come in, get you 15 points. Without that, you're looking at guys like Sadiq Bey. You're looking at guys like Jalen Johnson, AJ Griffin, you know, guys who are a little more up and down. And then when you compare and contrast the two teams, you know, guys like AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson, they're pretty similar to those backups who are going to be coming in for the Washington Wizards. So for me, without guys like Trae Young being declared in and playing in this game, I can't really make an official pick here, but I would be looking at Trae Young props. For me, this game is a pass, but I guess I'd be with the Hawks, if anything.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with Sadiq Bey. I think that usage, if the Hawks really are just accepting the fact that they're locked in for a play-in spot, they could sit some of these guys here and just rest them up for the remainder of the season. If that happens, I think Sadiq Bey might be one of the guys that they don't sit, right? They'll sit Trae, they'll sit DeJounte, they'll sit Bogdanovich, obviously, who's been downgraded. Bey, I think, would have the most usage out of everyone. I think Jalen Johnson would be the second guy there. I think, you know, when for the most part, when we get these late downgrades or late out statuses for players, they typically take down the line from a full game perspective and then move to the player props. I would say move quickly on Sadiq Bey if anything happens. I think his points prop would be the way to go there. All right, let's move on to the next game here. We got the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. Grizzlies 50-29 on the season. It seems like they're still trying to go for that number one spot here. They're only 2 games behind the Nuggets with 3 games left. A second leg of back-to-back games here, coming off of the win over the Blazers last night. First of a 3-game road trip to close out the regular season as well. It seems like they played heavier minutes than they want to yesterday. Blazers kind of stuck around for a little bit. Pelicans 40-39 on the in the West, currently sitting 8th there in the West standings, but only 1 game behind the Clippers and the Lakers, who are 6th and 7th respectively. Second leg of back-to-back games, coming off of that loss to the Kings last night. Third game of a 4-game homestand as well. Injury perspective, Steven Adams is out. Brooks is questionable. He sat out yesterday. I think he might be playing today. That will show us, you know, how important these last 3 games are for the Grizzlies if they continue to go for that number 1 spot. On the Pelicans side, Zion and Alvarado continue to be out for the Pelicans. Other than that, I don't see anyone on the injury report. Matchup perspective, Grizzlies own the series matchup 2-1. Grizzlies won the most recent matchup 116-101. Man, this one is tough. It seems like there's a lot more to fight for on the Pelican side, right? And, you know, I think one of the biggest things that I saw was just the fact that the Pelicans were 5-point favorites in this situation. So the line to me is telling me the Pelicans might be the side. You know, what are you guys' thoughts on this one? Matt, let's go with you first.
Yeah, Ron, I'm with you here. You know, I do think the Pelicans might be the side here. You know, this is a spot where the Grizzlies are traveling on the road to face off against the Pelicans. The Grizzlies have won against the Pelicans in their past 2, so there is a little bit of revenge narrative here. And, you know, last night the Grizzlies gave full run to Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson while Dillon Brooks missed. So if you go back and look at some of the trends with the Memphis Grizzlies, in the second night of a back-to-back, they like to shut down guys like Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and I think this could be a spot where those guys actually get shut down. And to your point, Ron, I think Dillon Brooks is the one who plays. And for me, you know, because of that, this would be a Pelican spot. You know, you always have that injury replacement theory and things like that. And a guy that I would definitely be looking to tonight, if upgraded to the starter, would be Tyus Jones. I think Tyus Jones can pick up the slack a little bit. I think he can get some assists. He's a guy who, when he's hot, he can hit some three-point shots. He attacks the basket well. So he is someone that I would be looking to tonight, because personally, I don't think Ja Morant is going to play. They can still potentially get first place, but they're very secure with their spot in second. There's not a lot of stuff would have to develop. The Nuggets would have to lose, I believe, all of their games for Memphis to potentially get that number one spot. So it is a long shot. I think they could proceed on the side of caution here. And again, the Pelicans desperately need this game. The Pelicans are currently in 8th place. They're 1 game ahead of the Minnesota Timberwolves and 1.5 games ahead of the OKC Thunder. So again, a lot to play for. They're at home here. And again, just a big spot. And when you look at this Memphis Grizzlies team, Memphis hasn't played that good on the road, even when they have all of their guys. They're 15-23 straight up on the road, 13-24-1 against the spread on top of that. And, this is a Pelicans team who's coming off a loss to the Sacramento Kings. They're still playing very good basketball. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. Again, this is going to be the hungrier team here. This is going to be the team that needs this game more. And we've talked about that on this show a lot. And to end the season, that's what I've been going with. I've been betting on those teams that I believe are hungrier, the teams that need the win more desperate. I think that's the Pelicans here. So another guy to take a look at is obviously Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's played incredible basketball. Right now, a lot of the prop lines are very sharp, so I'm kind of going with a different strategy. And so I don't know if I'll be on Ingram, but I do believe he will go out, have a good game. Definitely an option for same game parlays, things of that nature. But for me, I would actually be backing the Pelicans here. I feel pretty comfortable with this play at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at from a trend perspective, we're gonna go to Jeff here soon, and I know he likes the SDQL stuff, so maybe he'll be talking about some of these things as well. But if we look at the Grizzlies post All-Star break, especially specifically as road dogs, they're 0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread. The Grizzlies also 0-10 straight up, 2-8 against the spread as road dogs versus teams with a lesser win percentage. Average full game margin in those 10 games -17. It just really seems like post All-Star break that they're a little bit different. Obviously, I think one of the huge things me and Matt talked about before the show was the effect of Steven Adams and how much they're missing him. But from the Pelican side, they're much better defensively post All-Star break. I think they're actually first in defensive rating the last 10 games, maybe post All-Star break in general, but the last 10 games specifically, I know they're number 1 in the league in defensive rating. They also do much better defensively at home than on the road. They allow 115.1 per game on the road, but only 109.5 at home. So to me, I think the defense shows up here for the Pelicans. I think they get it done here. Really, like I said, not sure where the Grizzlies' mindset is as far as going for that number 1 spot. I do think that the Pelicans got a lot more to play for here to avoid the chance of the play-ins, and they're still technically not mathematically out. So I'll take the Pelicans here minus the points. What are your thoughts on this one, Jeff?
Yeah, you said it. I did look at a little SDQL. I thought it was interesting from a different perspective, though. There's actually 4 games on the card today that have both teams playing on the second leg of a back-to-back. This one's one of the ones included. And home favorites this year, when both teams are off on the second legs of back-to-backs, they're 25-6 straight up, but they're just 17-14 against the spread. So those home favorites are winning the games, but they're struggling to cover. But I'm sure Matt was watching that Sacramento New Orleans game. I know he likes his Sacramento Kings, and yesterday, I think that's a game that this Pelicans team is definitely looking to bounce back from. I mean, they allowed over 50% shooting for the second time in the last 2 weeks, and they lost by 18 points as a straight up favorite. So not only do they have something to play for in terms of the postseason and the playoffs that are coming up, but I also think that there's just something to play for based off of their performance that they put up the last game. I mean, losing by 18 points as a 3.5-point favorite, it doesn't really matter what the situation is. That's not one you want to recreate or repeat in the next game. But these two teams actually haven't met since, I believe, New Year's Eve, and New Orleans lost that game by 15 points. They were playing in Memphis. They had a tough outing in that one. And, nobody really knows, obviously, now with the play-in situation exactly who these teams are going to end up playing in the first round. But this could potentially be a first. I don't know if we still call it the first round if you consider the play-in games the first round, but it could be the first legitimate round, matchup in the West. So not only does this have impact in terms of seeding and ranking now, but I think it has something to be said about if these two teams meet again potentially next week to kick off the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plenty of good points there as far as this game. Real quick, I just got the official statuses for the Washington players. I know we just talked about that game, but Beal, Kuzma, Morris, Wright, and Porzingis all out. So, like we expected, it was official. They weren't officially out, but just right now they have been changed to out. Um, but yeah, I think plenty of good points on that game there. We do have one more here. Lakers and the Clippers is the last game up for us to talk about. Lakers 41-38 on the season. The Clippers also 41-38. They're tied for the record, but the tiebreaker is towards the Clippers here. So they're currently 6th and the Lakers are 7th, which is still in the play-in spot. On a 4-game winning streak here for the Lakers, second leg of back-to-back games coming off that OT win over the Jazz last night. Definitely didn't want that to happen if they were going to play hard tonight against the Clippers. Technically last of a 5-game road trip, but obviously they're in LA to play the Clippers here. Clippers also 41-38 on the season, sit 6th in the because of the tiebreaker, like mentioned. Currently on a 2-game losing streak. Haven't played since the loss to the Pelicans on Saturday, so very much more rested than this Lakers squad. Yeah, you have anything, Matt?
Wow, that's a good point. I didn't realize they hadn't played
All
since
right.
Saturday.
Yeah, and from an injury perspective, we saw last night D'Lo, AD, and LeBron were all uncertain after the game. They mentioned that they weren't sure if they were going to play, but seems like a key game here for them. They need to. I would assume they play tonight, regardless of how many minutes they played. Marcus Morris and Eric Gordon questionable for the Clippers here tonight. But Paul George, obviously the key player that we want to focus in on the Clippers side, he's continued to be out. From a matchup perspective, like I said, the Clippers own the season series 3-0. Games are 2-1 to the under as well, but all games were prior to the trade deadline, and we know how much of a difference team this Lakers squad is after the All-Star break and the trade deadline. Clips don't have Paul George this time either, and he played all 3 games. Matt, I mean, well, what are your thoughts on this one? Paul George is just a huge impact of this Clippers team, but the Lakers are running hot right now. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you expect these key guys to play for the Lakers?
Yeah, Ron, you definitely brought up a lot of really good points here. Both teams are 41-38 on the season, and this is probably the biggest game of the season for both teams. The Clippers are currently in 6th place. They own the tiebreaker over the Lakers, and neither team wants to lose this spot because the Clippers can go into the play-in tournament. The Lakers are currently in the play-in tournament, and obviously, if you're in that, you have a chance of missing the playoffs. And to me, you kind of added on to it a little bit too. Like I said, I didn't even realize the Clippers hadn't played since Saturday. And I think the Clippers do have an advantage here. And a lot of this has to do with last night. The Lakers went to overtime in Utah. Utah is a tough place to play. Guys like Anthony Davis, Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves all saw 42 minutes. LeBron James saw 38 minutes on top of that. And now they're traveling from Utah back to LA. Obviously, this isn't a road game. The Lakers will probably even have more fans in the stands for this matchup. But this is one of those spots where I expect this game to remain close. And once we hit maybe towards the end of the 3rd quarter, starting the 4th quarter, I think we're going to potentially see the Clippers start pulling away. Because for me at this point in time, again, the Lakers are playing great basketball. They've won 4 games in a row. The Clippers have lost 2 in a row. So again, I think there's more urgency out of this Clippers team. But right now with this Lakers team, like the engine that makes this team go is Anthony Davis. I've said this from day one. I know LeBron is a huge factor as well. But where this Lakers team goes, in my eyes, it's going to be where Anthony Davis takes him because he is the one in that middle who shuts down the opposing team trying to get to the paint. He's their shot blocker. He's their rim protector, their number 1 rebounder, a little bit of everything. And in this spot, the Clippers have both Ivica Zubac and Mason Plumlee. And, in terms of Zubac, he's not the best defender in the world at all, but he's a big body. He can at least get his hands up. He can disrupt things a little bit. And then if he gets in foul trouble, it's not even that big of a deal because then Mason Mason Plumlee comes in, another big body with long arms, moves his feet pretty well. So I think the key is shutting down Anthony Davis. And actually the matchup that I'm looking to here is actually going to be Russell Westbrook versus potentially D'Angelo Russell, if D'Angelo Russell does in fact suit up. Because D'Angelo Russell coming in, he's going to be those fresh legs for the Los Angeles Lakers. He's going to be the one going up against Russell Westbrook and having the ability to knock down some shots, create some opportunities with his assist game, things of that nature. So I actually think those two are a very key matchup tonight, because obviously Kawhi is going to be matched up on LeBron James. Vanderbilt is going to be on Kawhi. So the two that are going to have the best matchup will be Westbrook and D'Angelo Russell, again, given that D'Angelo Russell suits up. So for me, once those prop lines drop for D'Angelo Russell, definitely going to take a look there. I'll look at the points. I'll look at the points plus assists, maybe just assists alone as well, because I do think this is a solid spot for him. And then you also have to remember, I mean, we all know Russell Westbrook was on the Lakers. That was not a match made in heaven. He's probably a little bitter there. And I would assume he wants to come out and maybe get a little revenge once again. So I do expect Russell Westbrook to play hard. Again, Paul George has been out. Eric Gordon is out. So you're giving some of these other guys more volume, shot opportunities, minutes, things of that nature. But for me, this is a Clippers spot. I think this is a spot where the Clippers will get it done. I think the Lakers do have some tired legs here. Guys like LeBron aren't getting any younger, so this could affect him down the stretch. Anthony Davis, I think, has a tougher matchup. And although I think this is going to be a very solid competitive game that remains close, maybe up until the fourth quarter, I personally see the Clippers pulling away in the end. So I would actually be backing the Clippers in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, man, there's a lot of great points there. Obviously, the rest advantage is huge here on the Clippers side. What are your thoughts on this one, Jeff? Do you see the Lakers actually having a little bit more motivation than the Clippers, or are we seeing kind of the same from both teams here? This is a really key game here. I'm expecting a playoff atmosphere type of game. Typically, I like looking at those unders in that type of style of play, but I think you were kind of talking before the show here. You might be looking towards the other way.
Yeah, I got a couple looks on this game. I think this is an interesting game, no question. I got my best bet for the show. I do have a premium play actually on the total here tonight. I'm looking at that over. But, Ryan, I don't know if you want to jump in on this or if we want to roll it over into the best bet section. But, I mean, I am looking at the Clippers here tonight, and it is going to be my best bet too, actually. But losing back to back, I think that this injury management that we've been talking about all year is really going to prove vital in this game tonight. I wouldn't put all my eggs in with the Lakers, because at this point, you got three guys on this Lakers team that there are no question you're trying to keep healthy. LeBron, AD, and D'Lo, no question. And I think right now this Lakers team is just looking to make it into the playoffs. I think there was a time in this season that we were even questioning if LeBron was even going to make it to the postseason again this year. And yeah, they've definitely turned things on. This Clippers team, though, 10-0 straight up in the last 3 years against the Lakers. They're 9-1 against the spread over that 3-year span. And I did look real quick. Clippers 3-1 straight up and against the spread when they have at least 2 or more days of rest over their opponent. So they've definitely utilized that rest advantage. And I think that the questionable markers that we see on the Clippers guys, that we could start seeing some of them back here and start seeing some real minutes. And to Matt's point, my thought process is similar to where he is. This isn't a game I'm touching in the first half. I'll tell you that. I don't like NBA first halves as much personally anyway, but I think that this game's neck and neck up until about the halfway point. And then we start seeing that depth and the longevity of the Clippers team really start to be able to peak out there. Not only is it a back-to-back, but you guys mentioned it, a long back-to-back for the Lakers when you count their game last night. And it was a win that they were supposed to win, by a long shot. They were a double-digit favorite at a point, and they only ended up beating Utah by 2. So they're coming back, last leg on the road, if we want to call it that. But I do kind of think that the Lakers are a little bit in look ahead mode almost and looking towards that playoffs. And, I think that securing their spot in at least the play-in tournament is obviously essential. But I think that, in my opinion, the Clippers are playing a little bit more for now, and the Lakers are playing a little bit more for the postseason. I think they fell into a couple wins that, that may not have been anticipated to go towards the Lakers more or less. And the Clippers are coming off of 2 back-to-back losses, and I think that this is the point to prove it, especially when you could have some questionable games coming up. Obviously, Portland in their next game isn't going to be their biggest task, their hardest task of the season. And this could be one of the big games that you got something to prove and putting your best foot forward against the Lakers going into the postseason, with the only real game of meaning left being to close out the season against Phoenix. And, obviously we'll see at that point what Phoenix is putting into their lineup and who they're sitting and whatnot in the last game of the year. But potentially this could be really the Clippers' last big shot to go down swinging and to make a name for themselves before the postseason. So I expect them to come out hot. I expect the Lakers to keep it close in the first half, but I do expect them to pull away, and I expect a statement win here tonight out of the Clippers.
Yeah, I think you're kind of spot on as far as, staying away from the first half, and then taking maybe focusing in on the Clippers in the second half, because obviously the second leg of back-to-back games, it would probably get, the Lakers would probably get tired more towards the end of the game than in the middle, than in the beginning. So I think it makes sense that you say that the Lakers are able to stay close early, and then maybe the Clippers take advantage the rest of the way there. This one's tough for me just because I don't know the motivation on both sides. They could both be trying to get for that sixth spot. I mean, if the Lakers are going to do that, they're going to put all their eggs in the basket, like, in this game here specifically, just because it's such a key game as far as whether they want to be in the play-ins or be locked into the playoffs. From a total perspective, I think you were kind of looking towards the over there. One thing that I did look at from the over perspective is the revenge angle for the Lakers post All-Star break, 7-3 to the over in those games, averaging a combined score of well over 230 in those games there. Offensively, they just kind of turned it around after the All-Star break. But definitely a nice look there on the Lakers side. The Clippers side, -3.5. Especially if you feel like the Lakers are going to sit anybody, it's better to take the Clippers now than later, because obviously the number is going to switch up. Matt, what is your best bet for today's show? Also, talk to the people about what you got going on over at on Sports Memo.
Yeah, guys, right now over at SportsMemo, I have 3 plays loaded. We're on a 4-1 week right now. Like I said, just coming off that 4% $2 Tuesday win. Don't know if I'll have any 4% or anything along those lines today, but do have 3 plays loaded. Feeling very good about it. And today's best bet is probably someone you're not expecting, but it's going to be Kevin Huerter over 13.5 points for the Sacramento Kings. So right now the Kings are heading out on the road to face off against the Dallas Mavericks. And this is a spot where the Kings are also in a back-to-back after beating the New Orleans Pelicans on the road. So they beat the Pelicans, they're packing up, they're heading right to Dallas to face off against Luka and Kyrie Irving. And this is a spot for the Kings where, guys like De'Aaron Fox got full run, guys like Domantas Sabonis got full run. And this Kings team is 48-31 on the season with 3 games left. They have no chance really of moving from their third place position, moving up or down. And because of this, you have to wonder how Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings are going to treat this spot. And for me, I actually think they might sit De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. So what does that mean? I think guys like Kevin Huerter come in and fill that role. Last night, Kevin Huerter only got 22 minutes when he was facing the Pelicans. So it made me somewhat think that Mike Brown is actually saving him for this spot tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. And for the Dallas Mavericks, they are in 10th place right now, so they're still fighting for playoff contention, trying to get into that play-in tournament. And this is a Dallas Mavericks team where over their last 3 games, they have given up 125 points per game. So not playing much defense at all. Kevin Huerter will probably match up against guys like Kyrie Irving and Tim Hardaway Jr., 2 guys that really aren't that great on defense. And if Domantas Sabonis does not play, then that means Alex Len is most likely going to play. And Alex Len is still a very good player in terms of the pick and roll. He's a very big body, so he's tough to get around. It allows Kevin Huerter to pull up from that 3-point line, go to the mid-range, get some of those shots up as well. So for me, I do. I think Kevin Herter is going to go over this 13.5 point line tonight. With Mike Brown, he is going to proceed on the side of caution here, but there could even be something in terms of a bonus if this Kings team hits the 50-win mark. But with this Kings team, they are also so deep. Even if they sit Fox and Sabonis, you still have guys like Malik Monk. You have guys like Kevin Herter, of course, Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes, Davion Mitchell. You are still very capable of going out and still competing and potentially even upsetting this Grizzlies team. So for me, I still really do like Kevin Herter. I think it's a great spot for him tonight. I think he picks up the volume, slack, and opportunity if, in fact, Fox and Sabonis sit. And even if they play, 13.5 is a low number. We've seen Herter go way over this. So for me, it's Kevin Herter over 13.5 points tonight.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to be doing a player prop as well for my best bet. I'm looking at Quentin Grimes for the New York Knicks tonight. I actually gave this out to clients last night at 13.5, over 13.5 points. Now we're seeing it at 16.5. Obviously, the news of Brunson being officially out helps. I did put that in my breakdown as well, assuming that the Knicks pretty much locked into their spot so far. So for the playoffs, I was expecting, obviously Randall's already out. Barrett is already dealing with the illness. Brunson, he's probably the key guy here that they want to keep healthy to go into these playoffs. So I was assuming he was either going to sit or be limited in minutes today. And obviously they chose to just sit him in general. So this number has moved from 13.5 to 16.5. I still like it at that 16.5 number. When I was doing my breakdown yesterday, that 13.5 number that we saw last night, he's gone over that in 6 straight games. At the current number of 16.5, he's gone over in 4 of the last 6. And now we got like a street cleaner driving by while I talk about this game here. But at the current number of 16.5, he's gone over in 4 of the last 6. I think he gets a lot of usage tonight. All 4 games he went over 20 points. I even mentioned that in my breakdown last night. I feel like he's going to get there again tonight. I also think he's going to hit over 3+ 3-pointers tonight. Just usage all over the place for Grimes here. I think a lot of people are going to transition straight to quickly. But I think his number is kind of I think his number is high up there. I think there's a lot more value here on the 16.5 for Grimes. I feel like he's gonna be one of those guys that they need as far as like key role players going into the playoffs. You got big name players like Brunson and Randall and Barrett, that are gonna go into the playoffs. That people are gonna focus in on him. I think the Knicks really want Grimes to have some momentum going into the playoffs because I feel like he's one of their best 3-point shooters there. Quickly, obviously he's a scorer, but I think they want him to be in that role of sort of facilitating a little bit more, and hopefully they work on that for the last part of the season, and Grimes be the benefactor of that. The big usage going to Grimes with Brunson out. With that said, guys, I have that was, like I said, that's one of my premium plays. I gave it out at 13.5. I still do like it at 16.5. I do believe he's going to hit over the 20 mark. So if you like to ladder things, that might be the way to go there. I did give out a baseball play, but unfortunately it was the early game. I think it's delayed though, so they haven't even started. But that was one of the plays that I gave out for for baseball as well, the MLB. Man, a lot of stuff going on right now. Obviously, even the hockey's going off right now. Just a lot of things going on over at SportsMemo.com. So make sure you head over there. Everyone's giving out free picks and analysis on a daily basis. They also have their picks and packages available for sale as well. With that said, guys, our next show on Friday, we got, I think, Moneyline Matt's gonna be back with us, and then we'll have Tony Finn on Friday as well from WagerTalk.com. Till then, guys, good luck with all your action. Peace.
Play ball. Hot off the press, handicappers from Wager Talk, Sports Memo, and the Gold Sheet have collaborated on the 2023 Wager Talk Media MLB Betting Guide. From World Series odds to regular season win totals and everything in between, this year's betting guide features previews on all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, and season-long awards like the Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Each preview contains key roster acquisitions and departures to help you get up to speed before opening day. Visit wt.buzz/MLB23 to download your free guide, and we'll see you in the batter's box.